What that means is that I get to do these really fun things where I get to throw parties and throw our office hours, which are like networking events right before the Fringe, as well as all of our panels. So you'll see me a lot now and during the spring during our panels. And then I also run our Hollywood Fringe Scholarship Program. So if you have any interest in that or like, what is that, please feel free to come talk to me afterwards. We're also having a panel at 3:30 about how to apply, but also if you want to be involved as either a Fringe mentor or other things like that too. I also want to thank our lovely venue, the Complex, and Monica and Ross for helping us organize this today. Matt Kamimura, our wonderful staff photographer. Alex, who's downstairs, and our 2 volunteers who have been helping us so much this morning. Also, our scholarship applications just opened yesterday, and they'll be open until January 6th. And that's pretty much it. So now I'm going to ask you guys to talk as long as I did. So what are your names, your roles in your productions, and your previous Fringe experience? And if you did a show in 2017, give us your elevator pitch.
2018.
Yeah, 2018. 2018, this year. Not 2017, 2018.
Yes, right. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Okay, the one we just did. Okay, yeah.
All right. So my name is Kat Balsan, and I did a Fringe. I did a one-woman show last year. In 2018 at the Fringe, called Balsan. And it's basically the story of, it's my journey from France to America. All of the crazy stories that happened to me in France that made me put on my balls and come to America. And then breaking French stereotypes once I'm here. Because I did not know there were so many French stereotypes. But I'm learning and they're fun. Yes, I do shave my armpits. So you can break this one. And that was the first time I produced a show at the Fringe. I had been part of an ensemble 2 years ago, an absurd comedy called Uterine Affairs, and that's it. Yeah, and it was a great experience, and got to meet a lot of people and drink a lot. And now I'm just sobering up.
Then you're gonna have to start
4 months
training.
later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's strong right arm.
I'm Victor Isaac. I did The Word in last year's Fringe. It's my 4th Fringe. 4 years ago, I did a show called Nigerian Spam Scam. 3 years ago, I directed The Lamprey Weekend of Vengeance. 2 years ago, I directed and was in a soldier's play, and then The Word this year. I wrote and starred in it and produced it, which was a lot more work than I wanted it to be. What was it? I've forgotten the questions now.
Your description, and then you guys can also list any accolades that have come from that.
I won the solo performance award last year. Thank you. And then Lamprey won Best Comedy in 2016. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm Mitchell Bisschop. I did a solo show this year in Fringe. It's called I Can Hear You Now. It was a parody of Citizen Kane. It was a solo show, obviously, yeah. It was character heavy. It was kind of like a road. It's like a road movie, a nostalgia piece, a parody, and sort of like anti-advertising. And then it was characters, lots of different characters. And yeah, it was good. It was good. It was my first time ever doing anything like that, so it was really kind of a good experience, was what I was going to say. I had never done a solo show. I had never written one. I wrote it, I performed it, did all the costumes, produced it, yada, yada, yada. Had a director. He was backstage, helping me do quick changes. And it was a fantastic experience. It was my first real time doing Fringe. Probably I had seen maybe 3 shows in the last 7 years during Fringe, and this year I saw probably 35 shows. Plus did 7 performances of I can hear you now. So it was a really cool experience, and I will say the thing that really stuck out to me was like the community of people. Like she was saying, all the drinking you do, but it really is like more about just the connections you make and being like, my God, like where is this person getting this idea from? You know, and they're probably looking at you saying the same thing. So it was an awesome experience.
I totally did not say what my show was about.
Yeah, right.
How rude of me. My show is starts off with the Reverend Levon Jerome Johnson, who is the pastor and founder of the First Church of the Holy Homeboy. He's translated the Bible into a language that every motherfucker can understand. He writes a letter to the parole board on behalf of LaShawn Johnson that sets the two on a journey of laughter and redemption of the best kind of yourself.
So I actually think that we can have a competition up here between these people because they see probably more Fringe shows than anyone else. Because Kat, I think, saw 60 or something this year.
About
Jesus
60.
Christ.
Stopped counting after 60. So it's literally running from one show, thinking where is the next theater, the closest theater, because you do that mistake first. You're like, all right, I'm going to go see a show at the complex, and then I'm going to go see this show. You didn't consider the fact that you had to take your car to go see this show, and then you're back at the complex. So you're like, okay, let me sit down, work my schedule. Be like, all right, I'm going to see shows at the complex, and then here and there. And seeing 60 shows, it was incredible. I learned so much. I didn't even know that I had the capacity of focusing so much on seeing so many shows, but it was great. And I think that that's a whole big part of my Fringe experience, and seeing how other people work and the difference. And
I think that's possible because just for people who aren't familiar with the Fringe, typically a Fringe schedule, shows will have about an hour time slot. They might request more, but a typical Fringe show will be within that hour, which means it's shorter than an hour.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot easier to be able to consume. It's kind of like previews of a larger show, or sometimes people are able to get their more time, or sometimes they're able to get that story across in that amount of time. But yeah.
Well, actually, the shows that were longer, that were past 60 minutes, even though I really wanted to see them, they were just like impossible to fit in your schedule. Because you go see one show. So if all of a sudden one of them is an hour and a half, it cuts into the other one. So you're just like, I'm not going to see this show.
Which isn't to say that that's not successful. I want to kind of preview everything that we say up here as best practices. But at the Fringe, all best practices are meant to be broken, as long as they're not illegal best practices. Those we stay firm on. But anything that's like creative best practices, they're meant to be broken at the Fringe. Although people have had success by doing it other ways. So kind of jumping into that, because the Fringe process is such a different writing experience, how do you kind of get started about thinking about your Fringe show? And can you take us through like a 10-step of like, I think about it this way and then I go and I talk to somebody or I do this. Like, what is your first steps when you have an idea? That's a hard question, I know.
So kind of the way that I arrived at doing this show for Fringe was I had done the previous 3 Fringes, and I'd seen quite a few one-man shows, quite a different variety. I knew I wanted to do a one-man show for a long time, and so I first had to like get the idea together. I knew the characters, and so then I just needed the story, and I kind of approached it first from the story and then the emotional journey, and then actually started putting pen to paper, and then I procrastinated a lot, and then my director asked me to do it, and then I did a little bit more, and then I procrastinated some more. But then you just start putting the story together and you get it down on paper, which is the hardest part. That first draft for me was super difficult, because like I said, I had very specific journeys, and mine takes a turn towards the end that's supposed to come out of left field, and it was really difficult getting to that point without giving it away. So getting it down on paper and then doing it, and it's important to have other voices, other people looking at it, other eyes, not necessarily too many, but like you at least want somebody with an outside perspective to look at it and go, yeah, that works, or no, that doesn't work. For me, that actually didn't happen until the preview, but those guys were great and made some changes, small but significant changes. So that's kind of how I got there.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I think the first step was to find the director who you're going to be working with, and that's someone that you really trust and you've seen his work, or you have a good relationship. And so for me, it started a few years before the Fringe, and my director, Gary Austin, founder of the Groundlings, I obviously trusted him, and his process was, all right, go home, put on a piece of paper all of the stories that are significant in your life, or it doesn't have to be from your life, but all the stories that are significant that happened to you, and then putting it down with him, seeing what works. And what we did is exactly what you're talking about, is that we did works in progress. So we put it in front of an audience, a small audience, and as we're still writing the show, and according to the audience's reaction, he would sit in the back of the audience, just see what worked, what didn't. From there, we would tweak, and we did 3 works in progress like that. And then, sadly, my director passed away in 2017, as we were still kind of finishing up the show. So I promised him at the hospital, I'm going to finish this show. So I finished it by myself, and the Fringe was more an honor and a tribute to closing the show, because obviously I'm not going to keep going without him, not going to make creative changes without my director. So, but that was the process, and it was that find what really worked, what you remember in your life that was a crazy story. I don't know if you slept on the street, or if you climbed Mount Everest, you're probably going to want to write about that, and then put it in front of an audience, adjust it, and find your venues.
I had like a weird vision all at once of what the show was supposed to be like, and then it was like gone. And then and then last year around November, my whole department got laid off from our jobs, and I thought, I really want to kind of do that weird thing, that idea that I had one night. And then, but I've never done anything like this. So then around January, I was like, I'm just going to put myself in a position where I have to do this. So I signed up. I had a severance package, so I had all this time, and I was just still getting paid. So I signed up for the venue and paid for everything up front. So I had to do it,
That's good. Same thing.
And then I signed up for a solo writing class in January. And here's the funny thing: you tell people about this idea when you have it, and it's just like a jokey thing at a party or something, and people are like, that's fucking great. And then you actually sign all the things and pay all the money, and then you tell people about it, and they're like, that's interesting. And you're like, why was the enthusiasm before? You were so enthusiastic, you were so inspiring. So I took this solo writing class, and it didn't really work for me because, and it made me even more nervous, but there's something, because they were coming at it from sort of write personal stuff, write personal stuff, and we were kind of jammed in that. And I was like, no, I want to have because I'm an editor, so I want to have video and characters and weird shit happening, and a dummy. I had all these things that I made myself do. I wanted to have a dance thing. I wanted to have a dummy. I wanted to have a puppet. All these things that I was these are kind of
and terribly hard to do at the Fringe.
Yes, and terribly hard to do at the Fringe. But I didn't know that. Ignorance is bliss in that situation, because I'm I don't know. I have an hour to tech. Oh, whoops.
Right.
Well, we've got 1,000 lighting cues. I hope that's okay. But I tried to make it as easy as it was, because the video was the main part. You know what I mean? All the sound was sort of tied to that. So if they played the video and the video played, the music would play. So I knew that I could at least not worry about troubleshooting, stuff like that. So then, that was it. And so, like you were saying, getting it down, I think sitting, there's nothing worse to me than sitting down and trying to actually write down something. And the process that worked best for me was, because it was character work more, and I was more used to doing character work, then what I did was I set up a camera, I set up a microphone, which I still have sitting on my couch, and when I'm inspired, or when I start to think of what the character would start to say, I would just do it into the microphone. or put on the costume and do dry runs of this character. So there's plenty of footage somewhere, I'm sure I've deleted it by now, of me just sitting there going like this, like just thinking about, was that right, or I'll do it again, and then I still don't even know if I have like a proper final script of this thing, because it just was writing and then doing the thing and then rehearsing it all the way up to basically opening night, and changed it after opening night too because of reactions from audience.
Yeah, you
I had no idea how people were going to react to it.
Mm-hmm. I think just to piggyback on that, it's true that what you're saying, not necessarily writing your words, because then when you read your words out loud, that's not the way you talk,
Yeah.
So, and coming from the improv world, that's what we did with Gary, was that, hey, let's just improv with that. Let's just play. Let's do an improvisation with that story. And that's the way it's going to come out the most naturally. And then after doing it a few times, you don't have to put it on paper, it's true, but you can if you want to have a physical script, or if someone...
For me, it was easier. I put on a costume, and it looked totally different from myself, and could just start, and the voice is different, and I could just start talking about my day. You know what I mean? And things will come out of that. To me, that's just a more effective way to work. Some people can sit down and go, but go from in out, but I have to go out in.
I hated it. Every single thing I wrote, I would write something, and I'd sort of get in a vein. You're like, okay. Wow, that's a piece of shit.
And procrastination is part of it, I think, too. When you said procrastination, I was like, holy shit, thank God. Because I sat and did nothing but think about it for so long.
Right.
And then great things would come out of it, but you're like, also I could sit here and think about it for 2 hours and nothing can come out. And I'm a piece of shit, lazy asshole.
Right.
Yeah, but you did something that really helped, is that you set a deadline, and that's what we would also always do for the works in progress. We're like, we're not ready at all. We don't have anything. Okay, we're gonna do a work in progress in 3 weeks. Set the date. Book at the theater, so then you don't have the choice anymore. And
that was scary, but it made me do it.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that I did. The same thing where I just as soon as it was able to be, I signed up, registered for the Fringe. I found a venue and I paid for it, and I didn't even have a script yet. I committed to. I started telling people about it, like before I even fully formulated the idea, and I told everybody, because I was like, and I'm telling you because then you can hold me accountable if I don't do it.
That's the worst feeling.
Right.
When you fail for something.
What happened to that show you were going to do?
Well,
I just think the cost.
One of the first people I told ended up being my director, J.J. Mays, and I had done with these characters a show in Serial Killers over at Sacred Fools 6 years ago now, and he had always been saying you should do a one-man show, because it wasn't a one-man show then. He said you should do a one-man show. But these characters are great. And I was like, all right. And I said, so I'm going to do The Word as one-man show. And he's like, great. I want to direct it. And I was like, great. Now I'm accountable to you.
So you guys have both talked about how you met your directors. And when you're new at the Fringe, it's kind of hard to be like, who can I trust, who can I respect, but who also understands the process? How did you find people to work with?
Well, the guy who the person I had chosen as my director was, because I had a fully formed idea in the sense that I was going to just bulldoze anything I didn't like, and so I picked someone who could do the video aspect of it really well, and he was a guy from where I used to work, so we both got laid off at the same time. So, and we both were working at the same time, but he was like, I was like, hey, are you interested in this at all? And he's like, yeah, it'd be cool, theater, and I think he thought it would be something that he would just kind of swoop in and out of, but he became such an integral part of it that I was like, I bet you didn't think that this was going to be such a time suck. And then he's backstage like organizing costumes and throwing them on me, because I'm I have a minute to get into a bodysuit with a whole head thing and everything like that. So in and out. So there was a dance back there, so he was sweating by the end of the shows, and he had to be there. So he's just a friend who's a director who does video stuff.
Yeah.
But then he kind of was like, I'll try my hand at theater, and he really loved it. He loved the community of it, and it was kind of fun to see a person who's not a theater person really be like, this is great. Look at all these people having fun and in ball and dick costumes at parties and all these weird, eccentric people came out of nowhere, because there were 300 and some Fringe shows this year.
Yeah, about 400. Yeah, so there's a lot about that. And Also, just to let you guys know, there's a couple of Facebook groups that are relevant to the Fringe. So there's Hollywood LA Theater and Hollywood Fringe.
Yeah.
It's if you search that, it'll come up. And then there was another one that was started by some people this year. I think it's called HFF18. And then there's also Technical Theater Artists LA, if you're looking for more technical help, things like that. So there's tons of Facebook groups and things to get familiar with now, so that you already kind of have that in your wheelhouse in the spring when you're looking to.
Well, I think also too that's a really good resource, because just to check in with people, like if there was if you are looking for director, or if you are like looking for people to just like sort of sit in and watch. 2 people from the Fringe that I had met at office hours came to my house and watched like a dry run. And they were like, what the fuck are we watching right now? This guy running in and out in costumes in his living room. But it helped, you know? Yeah. It really helped, because just to see a smile on someone's face, like you were saying, just to get kind of a reaction, to know that, like, does this track? Does this work? Right. This is scary going on stage with no one else but you. And then you're like, fuck, I don't know if people are going to laugh or not, you know, or hate me.
I would just add to that also, for me, the fact that I had a director who was the one that I would refer to, because it's great to have reaction, and that's why we do Works in Progress, to see the main reaction of the audience. But you want to be careful in not taking unsolicited advice by every single person that sees your show, because everybody, and it's good intentions, I'm not saying they're here to, but everybody will have a different feedback, and everybody just enjoys different stuff. So you cannot please everybody. And if you're tweaking your show according to everybody's opinion, in the end, your show is just nonsense.
Right.
Yeah. And that leads me to my next question, which is actually where in the editing process do you start asking for feedback, and how do you find those people that you respect enough to ask? You know?
For me, it was like we made it to the preview before anybody saw anything. I would suggest doing it earlier than that, but
it worked for you.
But it did. It worked, and part of that, why it worked for me, is because there were specific people I asked who I trusted artistically, and I said, "Can you please come to my preview?" So there were 10 people there who I specifically wanted feedback from, and myself and my director. And JJ, who I super trust, we talked to them individually, and they were all sort of giving the same kind of feedback. It was all in that same realm, and it makes a world of difference. So earlier than preview, if you can. If not, definitely get a preview. But you want to get people you trust.
I'd say when you're most confident in the things that you want from it, so that you can really be pointed in how you get your feedback. You know, so that you aren't getting like. You know, so that it's not going to fuck you up if people are like, I don't get this part. And you're like, well, you don't get it, but people I know it's reading, you know.
That's funny.
You know, when you're confident enough to say, like, all right, I know the difference between shitty advice and or whatever.
You do need to be able to do that, because there's some people who didn't get my show, who like I said, there's a turn, and people really didn't get it at the preview. Almost everybody didn't quite get it, and then those are the changes that we made to make it a lot more clear. After that, almost everybody got it, but some people just didn't get it. And someone who artistically I think is fantastic came up to me after, and we were talking about the show, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't think you should hold on to that. I don't think that's a big enough secret." And I was like, "Do you know what the secret was? Because it's pretty big. I think if you came out with it at the top, it's a lot less interesting show." But
yeah, that kills your entire. That's like saying, I wish the beginning was the end.
That's literally what he said.
And you're like, dude, did you watch what I'm sorry, can't do it now. This would have helped 3 months ago. You know?
Well, but yeah. But anyway.
No, and also, it's find the people who you admire their work, basically, who you like their work. And seeing 60 different shows at the Fringe, you're going to have a good idea of, okay, this person, I like who they're working with. And then follow your guts, really. It's like, just like you said, it was you respect this person, his work, and his craft. But at this point, your gut was like, no, I'm not going to keep that. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you disrespect their work or anything. But and actually, there's a woman that directs like I'd say 80% of the solo shows
Yeah,
out at the
Jessica.
Fringe.
Jessica Lynn Johnson.
Yeah, so if you really don't have any idea of who to work with, I believe you can reach out to her because I don't know how she does
you
it,
can rent her
but
out
she
for
does
like
it.
2 hours and just have her just show her what you've got too.
She
Okay.
has a workshop that she does,
Right.
like a full workshop that a lot of people end up taking for solo shows.
Can you say her name one more time?
Jessica Lynn Johnson. And yeah, you're right. A lot of people do.
She does a lot of shows.
Yeah, a lot of shows. But it's good to have a team of people with you that will come to the office hours, that will come. Because I met a few people who were like, well, so you're by yourself? Yeah, my director is Jessica. And I was like, oh, she's not here. I was like, well, she can't come support everybody. She can't be hanging out postcards for me as well. And that's a big part of the Fringe is networking. It's maybe the biggest part.
How do you find your team of people who help you not only creatively but also in that aspect? Because it does start pretty early that you need to have that team of people coming to the first workshop together, and how did you find that for yourself?
Do you mean during office hours, or do you mean just a creative team?
Either way. I mean, honestly, the creative team you guys kind of touched on, but like you also end up having this other team surrounding when you and your solo show, and you need that support for promotion, but also for that support.
I mean, everyone's in the same boat. Everyone is just Jonathan Meyer Tipton.
Yeah.
Jonathan Tipton Meyer.
Jonathan
All
Tipton
his
Meyer.
friends, by the way.
Yeah, but he said one of the most profound things to me at one of these office hours. Well, first of all, you go to these Wednesday night things, and it's really great because everyone has drinks, but you really find people, but you also realize, like, oh shit, you think you go in there and everyone's going to have this, like, amazing show, and it's already formulated and ready to go, and you're trying to sell your show on it, so you're not going to be like, yeah, I can't memorize my lines, here's my thing, and but everyone's in the same boat, everyone's freaking out, so there's a support, there's like an inherent support with people who are just like, I really don't know if this is going to go well, I don't know how I feel about this. And he said to me, I was like, well, I'm not so well on it. He says, don't worry. He's like, he said, much to my director's dismay, I changed everything the night before.
Yeah.
And he's like, and the director fought me, and he's like, but I know this is the way it's supposed to be. And he's like, you just know. He's like, you're going to be changing things. Embrace that. Don't fight it. Because if you fight it, you're only setting yourself back. And I was like, I guess you're right. He was amazing. That was amazing to hear.
On that point, and then I'll get to the actual the question, but Fringe is not Broadway. Like, your show's not done. I made changes all throughout the whole process, the 7 shows that I did. I made changes, audience reaction, and me just getting a feel of it. Because there's something when you're workshopping your show. When you're just performing your show, you start to feel it. You sort of, and it's like putting on a suit and getting it tailored. So your show's not done. Don't think that you're coming up to Fringe, you're like, it's not done, it's not right, I can't, it's got to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to change. So that's a really good note, because that's just what it is. You get stressed out because it's not perfect, but it's okay that it's not perfect.
Yeah, just focus on the work.
And then each of you got a chance to do your show again after the Fringe, because you each got extended, right?
Right.
So there is a chance, like, if you're like, I don't know, I'm going to perform it during the Fringe and it might not be where it is, and you start progressing during the Fringe, there might be a chance that you will get an extension through your venue.
Right. As far as putting a team together, my first time at Fringe, someone produced our show. Somebody from Fringe produced our show. Not from Fringe, but who was familiar with Fringe produced our show, which brought me in. You've got to meet people. It's like, go networking. You'll find people who are doing this sort of same things, and if you connect with people, they'll be like, oh, yeah, sure. You're like, oh, I need so-and-so. They'll tell you, oh, who's looking to do something? Blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Or they say, you know what, if you need some help, I can help you out. That's one of the greatest things about Fringe is the community. How everybody is in the same boat. It's weird that there's awards at the end, because it's great, it's fantastic, and I love going to the awards show. I don't hate that I've won twice. But the thing is like, the award show at the end is really just kind of a big party, like, hey, we made it, like, we did it. Like, we put on all these shows, and you see as many shows as you possibly can. I've never seen 60. That's so freaking impressive. But you see, and you just form these bonds. And I think this year, we were just talking about this earlier, because sometimes what happens is after Fringe, it seems like everybody sort of goes their separate ways. And there are these people you meet and these friendships you make, and they seem to sort of go away. But like this year, it seems like Fringe is doing a lot more.
We have monthly office hours,
Yes.
which are usually just during March and beyond. But
Right.
now we're doing them once a month before, and you can come hang out with me.
So you can continue these friendships in this community. It's a great community. The LA theater community is a great community once you're in it. If you're outside of it, it's terrible. But once you're in it, it's great. Kidding. But yeah, you just got to get out and meet people and network, and you'll be surprised that you can find a team.
And they may be in this room.
That's right.
Yeah, well, it's true. First, you have your team, your director, and stuff, and then since you're doing a solo show, it's good to have a little army of people to come with you. That's for sure, to the office hours, and that your friends from your everyday life, not necessarily from the Fringe. Then they get involved with the Fringe, and they might want to do a show there. I found, because I have a few dance pieces in my show. During one of the office hours, I was, meeting people, and one of them says, "Oh, I'm the choreographer for this show." I'm like, "Oh, well, I could use, an extra pair of eyes on my dances, because I'm not a dancer." And by the way, his name is Fernando Christopher. And he came to my place, and he was like, "All right, let's tweak your dances, let's readjust." So you really meet those people at the office hours. On the other hand, I saw a friend who was doing a show, one-woman show. She was completely by herself, no producer, her director not being here because she's directing so many other shows. Well, we embraced her into our show and started passing out her postcards too. And, it's... By the way, if I was able to go see 60 shows, it's called comp swaps. Yes. So you give a free ticket to someone to come see your show, and they give you a free ticket to go see your show, or else I would be completely broke. But so that's how it's possible, and that's also part of your support team and the people who are like, all right, you know what? Fernando was choreographing another show, but he ended up passing out my postcards as well. Because they like being associated to people, and I'm passing out my friends' postcards. So if you come up with those friendships since the beginning, you're gonna become much more supported. And
yeah, it becomes kind of low risk in that sense, where you're like, well, the idea right now being alone and doing a solo show is probably the most daunting thing in the entire world. But then, maybe it was for me. But then meeting people, you start to feel like, okay, like if I screw up, all I've spent is you won't. But if you do.
If you accidentally kill somebody during your show.
But there's not like a screw up that you can really have.
Right. Exactly. It's so low risk.
You did it.
And the more you get to know people, the more you realize like everybody sort of feels the same way. And that there is like the support is really, it's like summer camp.
It is.
It really is like summer
camp. It's theater camp.
Yeah.
It's theater camp. I now, like June, I have a wife and 2 kids, and June is off limits for anything. Like, we don't do anything in June because I'm fringing.
Yeah.
And if you're married and have kids and, you have a partnership with your partner and you share responsibilities and everything, and in June they sort of shift to my wife, like she takes on the bulk of the majority, because she allows me to go and do Fringe, and it's theater camp. It's so fun. Like, and the mess up. If you want to do a show, do a show.
Yeah.
You will not regret it, unless you accidentally kill somebody during your show. That you might regret, but there's so low possibility of that happening. But you just do the show, because even if it's not the wild success you want it to be, you will not regret having done it.
And maybe your next one will be.
Yeah, and then at the end, too, you also have your show.
Yes.
That you can take other places and take other fringes, or mount in a theater, or take to New York, or whatever you want to do with it. Which is invaluable, honestly, to an artist, to a solo artist, to a comedian, to an actor.
And what's fantastic during the Fringe, too, because I've done my show before the Fringe, well, the Fringe, all the critics are ready to be harassed with press releases and, press kits. They're ready to come see shows at the Fringe and review shows at the Fringe. So this is an amazing business cards because I have a few critics that came. Now they wrote nice reviews about my show. They didn't come before because they didn't know who Cat Balsan was and they didn't care, but this is already a production company. You put the stamp of the Fringe Festival on it. So the LA Times will be like, okay, what's happening at the Fringe Festival this year that I can go see? And they come to office hours. You meet critics, you meet press people, and during the office hours or the parties. And that's, that's something that doesn't happen without that community. So, and it's true, just to jump back on that month of June, it's a full-time job to be fringing. And I was lucky enough that my boyfriend was my producer and he put on that hat, so we were both going to those office hours and we're both tired, but we're both doing it. And if you have someone in your entourage that can do you that can do you as well, but
it helps having it in your stable.
And come with you. That will really help,
And just to let you guys know, this is an overwhelming amount of information.
Yeah.
But we also do producers workshops in the spring. So we'll start with how to find a venue, then you'll get one about marketing and promotion, one about press and publicity and community and how to kind of connect with the community, and one about how to tech your Fringe show. So if you're like, I have to do this all on my own because that's what's in my budget, we'll help you do that. And those are all online from last year, the year before that, the year before that. And every year it's different people who we bring from different paths and they come and talk about their experiences. So you could go, if you're a superstar and want to go online and watch them all from the past couple of years, you're welcome to come in. But you're welcome to also go online on our YouTube, Fringe TV, and they're all there for your access. So I want to kind of bring it back to what is what does your process look like from now until June? Because obviously you're not going to office hours and handing your postcards out like mad right now. What are you kind of focusing on now? When do you start to bring in that promotional aspect? And
right now, I'm pretty sure I'm directing a show that I'm waiting for a script on.
Or when you did it when you were writing. Were you kind of writing,
yes.
and then that, and then this, and then that?
Right now, this time last year, I was telling people about my show and promising myself that I would have a first draft of the script in December. That did not happen.
Yeah, when did you get your first draft?
My first draft was officially done about 3 weeks before I previewed the show.
Oh my god. Oh man, that's so
and
typical. That pisses me off because I'm writing something now, and I was like, I gotta get it done by December. And of course, it won't be ready until the show goes up.
So it's right now. I mean, but I was almost constantly thinking about my show, constantly turning over the ideas and sort of the shape that I wanted the show to go in.
And you had that elevator pitch down.
Totally.
That idea of what it is.
Right,
is enough to start talking to people about it.
Right. So you at this point you're sort of putting that creative part together. And again, I was telling people about the show. Just sort of because you're kind of generating some buzz. You're trying to start generating some buzz, so that
and get a sense if people think the idea is any good too, right? You're still trying to I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
No, that's totally fine.
But that's the way I always feels like. Are people reacting to this? Are they getting this? Or
for me, I had it made up in my mind I was doing this show.
Yeah, me too. But
so it didn't still, what people thought. Well, I sort of had a built-in because I'd done something with these characters before and people liked the characters. That part didn't concern me as much. Mm-hmm. It was just more of kind of building up I'm going to do a solo show called The Word, and so that people keep hearing that. And then once you get around, you say it to somebody and they go, oh yeah, I kind of heard about that. You know what I mean? So kind of generating this sort of buzz to get people talking about your show.
I think that's exactly it. Right about this time of the year, you're, working on your show, talking about it. Because I did works in progress before, and that was the first time I was finishing the show without Gary. I just set up on my Facebook, I just wrote a big thing, big surprise, save the date, January, and I can't remember the date, but January something, save the date. And people had no idea what I'm talking about. Like, are you getting married? No, but there's a buzz that gets in their head. And then I did that one work in progress in January. And so that's when you keep writing and adapting. And people are already, your friends are like, oh no, I missed your show. Oh, well, I did hear about it. And yeah, because I post about it every other day. And then you're like, guess what? I have a bunch of dates in June with the Fringe. You can all come. So if you start, like for me, it was in January of 2018 that I started redoing the shows under works in progress, which I love. So I strongly advise this. And then all of your friends see it on your Facebook. Not all your friends can make it to your show and they feel sorry about it or they really want to see it. Well, the Fringe is a great opportunity because it's like back-to-back dates. And that was my process for me. And, you can register your show now. It ends in April, so, that's a good deadline to have in your mind. It's like, okay, I got to pay my dues by April. And
yeah, I would say April 1st, have your promotional stuff like in line so you can put ads in.
That's the deadline for the guide. So you have to register for 8 by 8. You can register any time for the Fringe. Like you could register a week before, but you won't be in our guide. So that means that you won't be on like our promotional stuff. You'll still be on the website and things like that. Like you could register during the Fringe, I'm pretty sure, but you won't be in our physical print stuff. So when you were handing out these giant books with all the Fringe shows, you won't be one of them.
Yeah, and I think April 1st is enough time. If you're talking about from now to the Fringe, April 1st is a good barometer of saying, like, look, I got 2 months to promote this thing, 2 months to have all my production or materials. If something's screwed up, I have enough time to redo it, which a lot of people were like, they get their flyers, and somebody had their flyers, and the dates and times were like, on a screen it looks normal, but on a piece of paper in a dark bar, you're going, when is this show? Yeah. Because it's like that big in the corner. They say, I don't have time to redo them, So that's something kind of important is you make little stupid mistakes that you just want to have enough time to sort of correct and get moving because, you want to do the show and you want to do it with an audience. And you want, these people that you've met for primarily your audience is going to come from Fringe.
Yeah.
That's just the fact. In Fringe, and it's a good thing. And the best way to do that is just make the connections, hand out the stuff, make sure people know it's your show, and they have that connection with you. Because, that's it, really. The promotional stuff, though, I'd say April 1st, try to have your show done by February. or be working on it after the first performance.
And I think that sort of goes back to like having that promotional stuff ready is having somebody on your team who can concentrate on that stuff because so you're doing a solo show, but you don't have to do it solo, and that's the thing. That's the thing to kind of like that was a problematic for me because you get into this mindset. This is my show. I'm putting out the money for it. I've got my director, and now I'm going to do all of these things, and it's a lot of work to do. Yeah. So it's really great to have somebody who is not a part of the creative team, but who is on board with you. But their job is to make sure all these other things are taken care of. That you're meeting all these sort of bureaucratic deadlines, not bureaucratic, but whatever. Getting the postcards ready, making sure that your artwork is ready. Putting together the people to put your artwork together, getting somebody to do graphic design for your postcards, for your website, for your Facebook page, for your Instagram, so you're ready to hit the ground running. By the time you go to that first, now not anymore, but by the time you go to that first office hours in March, you'd have stuff ready. You could talk about it, even if it was just a little something. You could talk about it. Oh, here's my show. Or when you did get it in April or May. You had something to hand out, and you didn't have to worry about that part because you've got to put a show together. Yeah. Now, if you can't do that, then
it's the way it is.
It's just the way it is. But if you can get somebody to take over that part of it, then that's super helpful.
The show, the writing, all that stuff takes priority.
And you can hire somebody. It can be your boyfriend. It can be anyone if they believe in you.
Right.
Yeah, and it's true as a solo performance, we kind of tend to want to control everything because it's our vision. We have the show in mind, and we're like, no, I want this light here and this light here because you're creating it all, and that's great. But for me, it was a little hard to lose control over the show because I had such that vision. But I realized that this vision needs to be just creative. And the rest, the production, as you said, having your postcards at the first office hour, well, when it was in March, right when it will make a difference because people will remember you from the very first office hours. I mean, if not, you're taking pictures of name tags. I'm like, oh, what's your show? And then I'm like, okay, gotta scroll through. So it's better to have postcards right away. And it helps when you have someone who's like, I ordered postcards. I didn't ask you. I did it. Fantastic. It's ready.
Right.
Let's go. Instead of having like, well, I got to take care of looking good. I got to take care of my hair. I got to take care of my writing and material.
And also, I just want to take some questions from the audience in a second. But first, what is one piece of advice that you got as a first-time Fringer, if you can think back, or that you would give to a first-time Fringer as to what is that cornerstone of advice? I mean, you kind of shared a snippet.
Yeah, I would
earlier.
say what Jonathan Tipton Meyer said to me, which was, it's good, it's going to change. Just, it's okay if it changes. Day before, if you need to change it, do the show you want to do. And make sure it's what you set out to do. He actually did a whole thing where he's like, go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. If you think you've gone deep enough, go even deeper than that. And that was something that I was like, yeah, it applies differently for my show than it does for someone who's, say, talking about a traumatic experience. Mine wasn't like that. It was very presentational, but yeah, it was okay. He gave me an invitation to say, it's okay if it's not totally done. You know what I mean? In the sense of the perfect performance, it'll evolve. It's a process, and that's important to remember because otherwise you're just going to think it's not perfect. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. You get caught up in that.
It's never perfect.
It never is. Yeah, or it always is.
Right. Depending on how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
I would say if you want to do a show, do a show. If you want to do a show and you can do a show, do a show. Make art. Just do it, because there's enough not art in the world. We need some more art. So just fringe on, grab it by the balls and fringe on.
I did wear my ballsy shirt.
You did.
So as far as writing solo show, because my biggest piece of advice would be marketing, but that's a different workshop. So writing a show for the Fringe specifically, my biggest piece of advice would be do it under an hour, 50 minutes, 45 minutes. Have the easiest setup possible, unless you're a puppeteer or something. Try to have as least props possible because you only have 15 minutes to get in and out of your venue. And I'm not sure if you guys know that, but unless you book your venue for longer. But you basically, and some venues don't even have a backstage for you. So it's just you're coming on stage, you're ready, audience is here, they're coming in, and lights up. Woo! Okay. So knowing that, Hell Goes Loose, we didn't have sound working on our preview in the venue that we were. Light was wrong, it wasn't lighting up. So that's okay, and it will happen, and everybody's in the same boat. So it's not just about you. I mean, it's not just happening to you. I've seen show where the lights didn't even come up at all, and they said, we're going to keep house lights. And it was a big production. I was like, hey, they're still doing a great job because they're involved in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the last thing, there was only one piece of advice. The last thing is love your show.
Yeah.
You gotta love your show. If you're not having fun doing it, then rewrite it. It's okay. Just rewrite that part that you don't like.
Be passionate about it.
Also, if you're curious about how to write a minimal tech show, that's our next panel.
When is that?
Right after this at 11:30. So you can come back up here and we'll talk about how to write minimal tech. And there's also a panel going on simultaneously about how to write a musical at the Fringe, because that can be really tough, but is possible. Writing a musical.
A musical, yeah.
Which is tough but possible, and people have done really successful things with it. And there's a whole award category for it. So Do you guys have any questions? Awesome. Amazing. We'll go here, and then there, and then there, and then there.
I hope my question's appropriate, because sometimes it's not to talk about these things. But the first thing I want to say is this panel was fantastic. I had many notes.
Nice. Glad we could help.
I'm super excited. But I am, I work 9 to 6, you know, like I'm hustling to be creative and pay my bills. And there's a lot of talk about money. So
Yeah.
if there's, can you tell me what your end output was financially?
Yeah, I was real. Look, first time Fringe, and now I know what to do differently to save some money. But I was very concerned about that because I was taking the time to write and not really working, so I was really checks and balances. I spent too much money on Ubers or Lyfts back and forth from venues because I didn't want to drive, and the parking around here sucks, especially if you're trying to catch a show. So that was a big cost. But my show itself, with promotions, with costumes, I had a big dummy in the show.
You had a lot of costumes.
I had a lot of costumes. I made them all myself. I threw money at problems because I thought I just have to get this done. So I probably spent $4,000 when all is said and done on the whole, I know. That's probably a lot. But that's with like the theater. That's probably like when all was said and done, you know?
Yeah.
And then my ticket sales back were probably like 15, I think.
I don't know.
14, something like that. And I knew I was going to take a hit, but it wasn't so bad because I was like, you know what? If I didn't make a dime, which I didn't, but if I didn't recoup or
You were
anything like
ready
that,
to.
I was ready to throw that money away into the show. So I was okay with it. But those numbers are probably not typical of the way people do it. People are probably better at being frugal in the sense I was not prepared for all the costs and the things, so I just kind of like the train was going, so I had to just do it. But I could probably get.
Can I get another number?
Sorry.
Do you actually know your number?
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean, I know it roughly, and
Yeah.
I couldn't afford the 5 dates package. So first of all,
I did
you
5
work-
dates too, by the way.
You work with venues that have different prices, and then they offer you a five dates package. I couldn't afford that, so I did only 3 dates. Still got nominated, you know, for best solo performance. Still won an award, so it doesn't matter. And at least I filled up my theater. Actually, we refused people inside the theater, but it was a tiny theater. But anyway, to put a number on all that was more than I expected, more than I could afford. I got into the more or less debts, and that was $2,000 with registration fees, theater, postcards, office hours, parties.
Also,
Cut it in half.
She was
Also-
probably the
also-
best at promoting too.
We
by the
also
way.
Yeah, she was
have-
fantastic.
She was the best at promoting her show, Kat. There's no one better at Fringe this year.
really good at it.
Period.
Well,
yeah.
I
But-
came in with a penis costume.
We
Yeah, yeah.
do have like a whole panel, which you should watch the YouTube on from last year. People come from it with all different sorts of financial backgrounds. There is a lot of upfront, and some people have some tips on how to recoup that or how to fundraise that.
Yes.
Because there has been a lot
Some
of
people do
successful fundraisers, like crowd funds, or like some people have like thrown a party and like charged ahead, or things that there's these creative
Or even
ways.
a Kickstarter or
Yeah,
Indiegogo.
yeah, and there's a panel later about like what's next, and you can ask some questions of them because those are some pretty expert marketers as well. So I mean, there's a lot of cost risk, and there's a lot of ways that people have combated that. We have 400 different shows, so every single person comes from a very, very different background, and everybody seems to be having an okay time doing it. So it's just like ask these. It's not an unheard of question to ask around and find out what those best practices are. But there's a panel about that, so you should definitely look into it.
Thank you.
Any one of you guys can answer this. It's actually less about you. Of the solo works that you've seen, or even in your own work, what do you think made for the most standout moments? What were the things that really made you resonated with you in a good solo piece?
For me, from the ones I've seen, were always the moment of realization that changes that moves the story forward. So if it's a personal life, what made you change your life or realize that's the tipping point in a story? Yeah, that was, I had a car accident and it was like a vegetable, and that's when I took action, my life changed. I didn't actually see a show about that, but this is, in each show, it was the tipping moment, realization of what's happening. what caused and what's next. And the empowerment that, we're like, she's back on the hook. Thinking of Cat Show, for example.
I enjoy when I get to catch up. Like the story's going, and I don't realize the storyteller is ahead of me until the moment when I get to catch up. And it's one of the things that I did in my show. Where you're being given information, you're like, hey, I'm following this, I'm having a good time, and then suddenly something is said or something happens and makes you think. It's the Sixth Sense moment is what it is. When you realize that Bruce Willis is a ghost.
What?
Spoiler alert. Sorry.
You say spoiler alert before.
Oh, is that how that works?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So that sort of moment where you go, wait a second, now I have to reevaluate everything that I just saw.
Let's see it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I would piggyback on that and just say, I don't know. Actually, the thing for me was probably the most, those are the most truthful moments. I mean, you're watching a play, and somebody hits on something. I mean, the best part about solo performance is really just you and the audience.
Yeah.
So if you can connect with the audience, and there's a moment or a few moments where it's truth.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing like a broad comedy, a silly, absurdist comedy, and there were moments where I could feel like I was hitting the truth with the audience, whether I meant it or not. But I was like, okay, good, like that keeps the engine moving, So yeah, the moments of truth always connected with me when I watched other shows. We're like, yes, this guy. I saw people snapping in the audience and it was going crazy in moments because somebody just hit upon a truth, And that's individual. I mean, it's universal when it's the more individual it is. Does that make sense? I always found where it was like, I thought it was just me.
Yeah.
But no,
It's
it's
everybody.
a complete. I'll say there was a show called Locks, Love, and Liberation. Did anybody see that?
It was
Ella?
a scholarship winner.
So good. Basically about black women's hair.
Oh, right, yes.
And it was one of the things that moved me most, because of her performance. And there were things where I was just like, like I should not be relating to this as strongly as I am, It was beautiful. It was great.
Why not?
Okay. Well, just because it should be a totally different experience.
Right,
But it wasn't. It was. She was really able to bring it together. So to me, that for my money, I would have seen that all the time. I just love Ellen too, but that show was great.
How does one find a director?
Do you guys want to kind of briefly tell your stories real quick?
Mine was somebody who I had known and worked with previously. And when I said I was doing this particular one-man show, he's like, great, I want to direct it.
For me, I was doing improvisation with my director, and he directed a solo show, and I went to see the solo show, and at the end, I was so blown away by the work, and I said, wow, that was incredible. Then he said, you can do one too. And we started working on it. So it's really, go see something, you admire the work, go talk to the director. It's like, hey, can I hire you?
I was just a friend from a coworker who's a film guy, so he was a director. And he wanted to get into theater and stuff. So.
And I mentioned some Facebook groups earlier to kind of find those types of people and start looking at who's posting and going to see shows that are relevant to the Fringe community. There's Hollywood Fringe and LA Theater. There's HFF 18. I think that was started by some people that just actually started. This was their past year was their first Fringe. And then we have this isn't associated with the Fringe, but Technical Theater Artists LA will help you find some more technical, so sound designers, lighting designers, stage managers, things like that. And then honestly, just coming to events and meeting people, like they said, is a great resource that most panelists say has helped them.
How about a more nitty-gritty resource like a graphic designer? How do you find one of those for those who can't hire someone?
We have a whole panel on it, but also that would also be a great resource for the group.
Mm-hmm. Like you'd be surprised how many graphic artists you probably already know.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people who Caitlin Schiller, who I didn't know. She's a fantastic actress, but also a ridiculously awesome graphic designer.
And a Fringer.
And a Fringe, yes.
And you can check out postcards and see like, oh, I like that logo, and just reach out to the person, hey, who did your graphic? And they'll give you the name. Everybody's happy to work, so, referrals.
You can
great.
also look at our, the Fringe puts out a participant packet, and we have last year's up still, and it will be updated for this coming year in the spring. But you can always look at last year's, and it has lots of resources for printers. Just like a lot, again, best practices. It's a really thick packet of like 25 pages or something.
And that's online?
Uh-huh. It's on HollywoodFringe.org, I believe, /participant packet. I'm probably wrong. But if you can search on our support portal and it's there. And then we have...
Well, and also, just to say one thing, when you go approach a graphic designer to I would say have a good idea of what you're asking them to do something probably for free. So have a really good idea of what you want.
I know exactly what I want.
Okay, good. Perfect. Well, then that's great, because then you'll be able to communicate that to someone, and they'll be able to get back to you. And it's, you know what I mean. Then you're not wasting anyone's time, and you don't have to hopefully pay them all that much.
It's fun to mock things up.
Yes.
I have a mock-up of it.
Oh, perfect. Great. That'll
Not
help.
with me,
That'll be great for you then.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you, I've heard you say less than an hour. What about something like over an hour, that's 90 minutes? I heard you mention that. Does that occur anywhere?
No.
It does. When I did a soldier's play, it was 90 minutes. But we cut the intermission because you can't do intermissions in Fringe. And it's you can do it. It's a little tough though. It's a long time to ask the audience to sit for any show, Fringe or otherwise. It's a long time to ask the audience to just sit without a break.
How about the venues? Do any of the venues willing to accommodate?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're just gonna pay more.
Yeah.
You're gonna pay.
Some automatically offer like a 90-minute package or a 2-hour.
2 hours.
Right?
Yeah.
Just keep in mind that the people who are going to come see your show also have shows and are committing to see so many other shows. Maybe I did 8 during the same day. So when you do 8 a day, when I would be surprised when we're like, oh my god, this is a 30-minute show. Yeah, we were so happy.
You meant
when
to
it
get
was
in and
over.
get out. You go water
And
afterwards.
some of the most successful shows have been that short,
Yes.
and like
Yes.
that's because you're able to get a lot of people in there.
I'm really hearing you say 45 minutes max.
Yeah, that's great.
50, I would
Mine was 55, but there was like 0 setup. So like when the show is over, we could just get out of the theater.
Okay.
I also want to remind you guys that all of these rules are meant to be broken.
Right.
Yes.
And that there are venues, and if you watch our venue panels, there are venues that like don't have as many shows and might be able to offer you 3 hours. You have to pay for it, but there it just depends on your venue. And when you look at the venue workshops, which are online, or if you come in January to one of our venue workshops, you can ask them about these things, and they will have lots more information about how to book those longer time slots. And they're totally there and available. They're just not as common.
And like I said, I did do a soldier's play, and it was 90 minutes, and it was
You did what?
a soldier's play.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, and it was 90 minutes, and it was successful. We had decent audiences, but it's a long time, and that's also a drama, which is like stacking the deck against it, but it can be done.
I feel like even the 90-minute things a lot of times are like an hour 10.
Right.
You know, they're like they can't fit them all into like they can't fit them into the hour, so they buy the 2 hours so that they do their hour and 15-minute play.
Okay.
Shorter is better.
Yeah.
I mean, again, rules are meant to be broken, but shorter is better. It's more desirable to somebody who's going to see 8 shows in a day.
I will say that if your show is an hour and 10 minutes and you book an hour time slot and you put it in at 60 minutes, your audience will be annoyed because they're trying to
yes.
Oh,
You'll
yeah.
get it.
So if you are trying to do an hour and 10 minute show, make sure you're very clear about that time being an hour and 10 minutes.
Because people will get up and walk out of
They
your
get
show
up
because
and
they've got to
walk
get
out.
to their next show.
And they'll write a bad review based on that.
Especially when the show is amazing. You're like, oh my god, it's amazing. It's
Yeah,
running
but I
over
gotta
time.
go.
I'm going to go.
I-
And then
I-
you leave and you're like, oh.
But
And
there
so
were
if you book a 60-minute time slot, if like that's you, if you book like a 60-minute time slot, make it 50 minutes, right?
Right,
So that
exactly.
your audience has that time to go to the next place. Otherwise, book an hour and 15 so they have that that buffer
So
time.
a 45-minute show would be an hour and a quarter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
book it.
exactly, because you also have the in and out time.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Also gives you a little bit of flexibility on start time too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is needed because
You get the
tech
whole
things
hour.
happen.
You get the whole hour no matter what.
Right.
They've booked,
And then
the
15 minutes
theater
on each
books
side.
15 minutes on each side of it so that people can load out, load in. But if you go the full hour, then people, it has to be done, man, at 60 minutes, 59 minutes on the dot because
Right.
people got to get out and walk maybe to the point.
Or they probably will leave.
Or they will leave, yeah. Because they'll get nervous themselves, you know.
And it's hard.
And you know, like we said, there's totally these panels that will kind of help you navigate that with your venue and navigate that with your audience, so that you're able to talk about it. Because if that's really important to your story, like these people are saying, know your story, know your what you
I
want.
love
to write.
doing it. Yeah.
Any more questions?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part, but for a solo dance performance, half hour, for out-of-town artists, how would you book schedule? How would
Which part of scheduling?
Like how long?
you, not how long, but how would you figure out which dates?
That's
If
with
you-
the venue
yeah.
and stuff like
Well,
that.
Well,
and-
or whatever.
Like if you're here for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever.
There's a lot of shows
Yeah.
that have done that, and we actually have last year's marketing and promotion panel. If you look on the thing, Sophie Kahn did a one-woman show. She was a scholarship winner. She came from San Francisco, and she gives you her best practices as to what to do if you're an out-of-town artist to make sure that you have your most successful run, because she had people down here promoting for her. She has a lot of best practices for that, so you should look that up on Fringe TV.
There was like a dance team
Yeah.
from like Argentina or whatever, right?
This last year?
Yeah. And they did only that. It was apparently great. I didn't see, but they only did that first weekend and then they had to go back.
Yeah.
But everyone was
Remember
like,
that
"Oh,
was,
this
yeah.
show's great. Too bad they couldn't be in town longer." But
And I've seen other people. There was a guy who did a show called Prior Convictions, I think 2 years ago, and I think he was in town for like a weekend. Like he did 3 shows. It was like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, or whatever. Friday and then 2 shows on Saturday or whatever. I think there are different ways to work with your venue, and you'll want to work with your venue early, so that they can accommodate. Because once they start filling up, they just start plugging shows in and giving out dates, and so you want to make sure that you get in to get the best possible availability.
We have time for one more.
Maybe you touched upon this. Press. Is the theater that you have the deal with going to take care of it, or is it Fringe, or is it you?
It's you.
All
You.
Okay.
And you don't have to worry about that now. We do have a full panel on press and marketing.
Is it going to be in January?
Yeah, it's in February or March, but we also have them online from all the previous years. So even this workshop is being recorded, and this will be posted. This will be posted.
I didn't know we
and
were being recorded.
all of the sorry, didn't
I did not.
But all of the panels today will be recorded. All of the panels in the past are on our Fringe TV site, and so you can look back at there's one called Money and Promotion and one called Community something. It's workshops 2 and 3, and they both touch on what that reaching out to press looks like. But it's also something you don't have to worry about right this second.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm gonna call it a day. Actually, a session, because we have more coming up. In this room, we're gonna have how minimalist tech, no costumes, no props, no problems.
Yeah.
Because
That is
that's a
very
big
true.
thing that comes with the Fringe. I want to thank our panelists for this. Kat, Victor, and Mitchell are the best. We'll be sticking around for a second if you guys want to come talk to anybody. And then downstairs we have how to write a musical at the Fringe.
Awesome. Thanks, all.
Yeah, thank you guys.